And then Andy, I want to start with you. So, and then we'll go to Chen and then Alex. And actually, I'm going to make this a two-part question. So the first part is, what are your kind of biggest make or breaks for your, specifically for your RNA therapeutic, right? As we're thinking, there are a lot of capabilities that kind of carry over across modalities. I'm really curious to hear, what are the RNA specific needs, right? RNA-LNP needs that you look to when you're weighing a CDMO for outsourcing? That's number one. And then two, are there any really, really important pieces that you try to negotiate with when you're putting together your MSA or your quality documents that you think are really important to make sure folks spend a lot of time, going back and forth and negotiating the best partnership? So go ahead, Andy. Wow us.
Yeah. Well, okay, so why have we succeeded where others may have failed and kind of delivered on an aggressive timeline and put a product out that's working well in humans?
Yeah. It wasn't just luck.
Back to that. I talked about it, we work with our CDMOs, but it's a collaboration as well.
Okay.
So we're lucky we have deep expertise in this new second generation technology. So we have something that the CDMOs want and knowledge that they need. And so we get the A team. We get the team so usually in these big CDMOs particularly, they have more than one team, and you don't want the D team, because you'll get what we're getting in the comments here. There's no feedback. There's no ownership. You've really got to get a team. So you're there when stuff goes wrong and the CDMO says, okay, let's sit down, let's figure this out. What went wrong? They're open, they're transparent. You're still paying for it. You're not going to there's no discounts, but the fact that they'll say, we need to fix this, and you work together, you come out with a troubleshooting plan, you go through the scenarios, and you're data driven, and here's the solution. And then you move on. That's what you want. If it was internal, that's what you would do. You would put a tiger team on it. You say, look, we've got a month to solve this. This is mission critical, and that's what you want from your CDMO, that they're willing to commit the resources and solve a problem, because that problem may be generic for them going forward as well.
Yeah. Is that important to, be pretty highly specific when you're drafting your contract with the CDMO? I know we've got a question here. Are contracts and language around failed runs initiated during a CDMO evaluation? Like thinking through how
it'll all be in there in the contract, what happens if. But it comes down to that, when you go and you do a site visit, walk around, talk to the people, try and understand how many teams do they have? Who am I going to get here? What's the background of these people, historically? And because typically with new technologies, stuff happens. You asked that question on the drug substance side, batch failures.
Yeah.
Compared to cell culture, a lot less.
Okay.
With an enzymatic transcription reaction, a lot less, but you will still see problems and issues. And when you see them, you want a team that puts a flag up and says, okay, let's take a look here.
Yeah.
And then let's fix it.
Yeah. We do have a comment, CDMOs are not miracle makers and cannot share all their data from various customers. It's not fair to ask a CDMO to set a spec for a drug developer. So that's something to think about too. Commenting.
No, we set our specs.
Yeah. But
I think it also should be a discussion, though. I think it should be a discussion, because CDMOs that do have expertise can say, well, in relative terms, this is what we've seen in our experience, or things like that. Or maybe we hold off until we get a little bit
Alex,
more
they know the capabilities of the assay as well that you're using, and that can help. But ultimately, you'll be setting specs based on the batch records for whatever you're producing with them, with some guidance from them, some guidance from you. You may have a consultant on board as well.
So
spec setting is more related to your data, right? Your development log data, you need to support, because even say this mRNA, different product may, have some different details there. So I do think for setting spec, the company need to take initiative and working with CDMO, because if they set a spec, too high, CDMO cannot produce it, and then that's a different, scenario. CDMO, that's what engineering and the CDMO, they want it, right? So they know they can make it per your spec. But spec in the end is your development data, and you need to put that in your regulatory filing anyway. So it's not one person to do it, it's data driven and collaborating with CDMOs. Of course, assay play a big part in the specs too.
We've got another comment here. CDMOs are often considered regulatory agencies where it's the responsibility to seek scientific advice. This is often overlooked by the sponsor. Project success is often depending on regulatory input provided by the sponsor.
That's totally right, yeah.
So I know, Chin, during our pre-call together when we were talking through the topic, the ability to navigate global regulatory requirements, right, and timelines was a huge piece for you. In thinking about how you are selecting CDMOs, we've talked a lot about the stage of development that you're in, but when it comes to some of the RNA and LNP specific expertise, what are your make or breaks, and where do you spend the most time in your contracting, right, to make sure that you're getting the relationship, partnership, and level of transparency that you want from your CDMOs?
We have some established CDMOs. We've been in here for a long time. So for the new one, there are a few things we of course, because we are expanding, we have commercial already established, the CDMOs, especially for our commercial late phase, and we are evaluating new CDMOs for preclinical, clinical, try to do some risk assessment too, right? So a few things for sure. I think Andy said correct. You want company to have commitment, have support, basically have the expertise too, right? When they say how we can make it, can they really make it? Do they have some experience with it? Do they have the right people there? The facility is fit for that purpose, and do they have some flexibility? That is needed, because we know sometimes things doesn't go perfect right in the beginning, your timeline, your changes, the documentation, modification, all of those, you need some commitment, flexibility to work together. It is a collaboration, not a one-way street. So that kind of items, have to be on the checklist. Of course, the regulatory compliance, the expertise, the quality support. In the end, you go to GMP, you want to have clinical trial, you will write all this into documentation, submit to agencies. So there will be lots of questions coming up. Hey, all these details, you need CDMO willing to support and on time, good documentation. Those things, we always take a look at that too.
Yeah.
So, Anna, just for those, you've got to go in and do a quality audit of the CDMO. For those that might be in the early biotech, maybe you could give us a comment there.
Yeah.
You got to kick the tires. You got to go on site, and actually through Bioprocess Online, I think I did put any of the watchers and listeners. There is a MSA template, for that they can use for both drug substance and drug product. Now, big ones that I think so go on there and you download that. From a CDMO perspective, I don't ever want to be taking on more liability. Like if I'm doing the LNP and there's a lot of money that's been going into this all the way up there, I don't want to be responsible for way more than I could potentially make, or like be responsible for. So you need to make that really understood, where those costs, if a batch is dropped, who's responsible for what. CDMOs, a lot of the times, they make their money X works. That means as soon as it ships, they can invoice. So make sure that you understand that, and there may be some additional costs associated with storing that long term. This may be a part
part, right? It's not the evaluation of the CDMO. There are two parts I think we discussed. One is the evaluation CDMO, what you're looking up.
But also the MSA, or thinking about that.
Like closely, I think Alex and Andy both mentioned, roles and responsibility has to be very clear.
Yeah.
It will involve the money in the end.
Mm-hmm.
There is.
Yeah, keep going, Alex. Were there others that
it's
you
like
had?
also like person and plant. Like, Andy was saying, and, we were all saying, I think it's collaboration. So the actual ability to be like, oh, you will communicate a month before we're scheduled to get on that we can get there. And if we want to have a person there, where do we get to have the person? Are they in an office? Are they in the GMP suite? Does that have stuff to do? It can be collaborative and minute to minute.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of stuff you can get really particular on, especially when it comes down to even visual inspection of these materials. They're difficult to inspect. Sometimes they're cloudy or opaque. So you don't. There's been the technological push again with isolators. There's Cytivas, and there's the Variosis system, right? That has like 3 different groups, scans, isolators, and everything, so that you can make it where you're less likely to have contamination at the very end by just like particles or broken glass or what have you. So understanding what it is that you're required for input and output in extreme detail. You'd be surprised how many times there's gray room, but you shouldn't have that.